N.E.M.A coordinator evaluating the agency's progress. Prime Minister visiting the ABACO today. And BTVI reporting a drop-off in enrollment post-Hurricane Dorian. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Topping the news, new developments unfolding as it relates to N.E.M.A on Grand Bahama. It has been some 60 days now since the passage of Monster Storm Dorian, and relief efforts are expected to continue for many months to come. In this report, Grand Bahama's N.E.M.A coordinator gives an update on efforts thus far and plans for the immediate future. The National Emergency Management Agency moving to a new location in the Star General Insurance Building. N.E.M.A coordinator Senator K. Forbes Smith says that building will be the new home of the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness Management and Reconstruction. Now, since the passing of Hurricane Dorian, Smith notes that it has been a challenging time for everyone on island. However, she says N.E.M.A has had some successes when it comes to providing assistance.
We've had a massive amount of support internationally with relief goods and supplies. And our main focus for the past 60 days has been making sure that people have been able to receive the goods that has been donated by the international community and by local persons within the Bahamas and those persons, Bahamians, who also live abroad. We have a number of distribution centers available. All of the urban renewal offices are also distribution centers for N.E.M.A. All of the constituency offices have been receiving goods from N.E.M.A for distribution as well. We have the Church of God of Prophecy on Coral Road, who has also received goods from N.E.M.A for distribution. And so there's we are constantly called upon by different churches. And, you know, we started out from day one with a very good relationship with the churches.
She adds that there is still more to be done and that the agency is continuing to work to solicit more aid.
I know that people are now interested in building supplies, and our donors have approached us about what that looks like, what it is that people are looking for. So we are out there also talking to our donors about the building supplies and what people really want. So we're hoping that we can get building supplies in very shortly.
The Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce is also working with N.E.M.A. She says the president of that organization provided an update on the business community recently.
It looks to be about maybe 10 to 12% of the businesses that have been surveyed. It looks like that amount of businesses may not reopen, maybe 10%. Again, I don't believe the Chamber has completed its, its surveying of all businesses, because not every business operating in Freeport is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. But I know that they've been reaching out generally to all businesses. And a number of people have been laid off. Some businesses are not sure and have not made a decision on what they might do in terms of reopening. And again, that impacts employment.
She announced that another major distribution is planned for the near future.
We're getting quite a bit of support from the various cruise lines that are coming into Grand Bahama Shipyard because they are refitting their vessels. So this week, and we'll have more to say about it, but on Friday they're offering about 600 plus chairs that has been assessed by the Ministry of Works, and also Customs has given us permission, N.E.M.A, to accept those goods for distribution in the community. And I believe that those goods will be made available on Friday, and we will put an announcement out as to what the process will be for residents to receive those goods. They do have to bring their own vehicles to collect them. They will be staged at one collection point. We will do it all day on Friday until we get rid of all of the chairs. Organized N.E.M.A.
Since the passage of Hurricane Dorian, many have called for the country's building code to be strengthened in order to withstand storms that appear to be getting worse each year. While many persons are looking at the most cost-efficient way to rebuild, the officer in charge of the Ministry of Public Works is advising those preparing to rebuild to err on the side of caution. Rumiko Knowles reports.
Officer in charge of the Ministry of Public Works, Clint Bean, says, over the years we've done an excellent job designing our structures to withstand strong winds. However, he says in recent years, there has been an additional component that has been creating a problem: water.
Water forces, water weight is considerably more than wind. And so we are telling all of our international NGOs who are doing these wonderful efforts, we're asking them for two pieces of information, and we want you to remember this. Ask them the same questions and or come into the Ministry of Works.
As for structure testing, he says there are two agencies that has tried and tested methods for testing and evaluating new products.
Our building code from its inception has been pretty much a word-for-word take from the South Florida Building Code. And that's the reason for using the Miami-Dade County's testing procedures. They are looking at weathering, they're looking at impacts. They have these fancy terms called missile tests, which means that they fire something at very large velocities at windows, make sure they stay up.
Bean says another term that is being talked about is modular construction.
Modular construction that is effective in this region has to involve some composition of reinforced concrete. When we have these things that look like Lego building blocks, they are just that. And they do not work in this environment. So we want you all, once again, err on the side of caution. Come and see the Ministry of Works. Come and go and see a structural engineer before you enter into any commercial agreement with these NGOs on these alternative building products.
Rumiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Grand Bahamas business sector may be shrinking, according to a survey conducted by the Chamber of Commerce. A significant number of businesses may not reopen after sustaining damage. Since then, the Ministry of Finance has offered a bit of an incentive. Tonight, the Finance Minister talks with our Jamila Mizik about this ongoing challenge.
Queens Highway is one of the busiest areas in Grand Bahama, but many businesses in that district remain closed weeks after Hurricane Dorian. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable K. Peter Turnquest, says restoration of that area is still a significant challenge.
As you know, this has been significant water inundation here, and so as a result of it, there's lots of infrastructure damage. The ability to return power to the area is a challenge, and so it's going to take a little while for people to get up and do the remediation work that's necessary for them to reopen.
But he says the reopening of businesses like the Bahamian Brewery, one of the businesses on the strip that was badly damaged, is a symbol that it can be done and that there are those business persons who are in fact interested and vested in Grand Bahama and are working to help the island's economy.
I think we will start to see this take off as the weeks come and people start to recognize that, you know, all is not lost, that this economy, this island is still worth investing in, that you can still make a profit here and it's a good place to live and to work. So again, I think this is just a small start, but it is a start in the right direction, and we'll start to see all of these businesses along the strip as we start to clean up the area, start to invest and to start again.
As far as the downtown district, the DPM says there is a similar situation with water inundation, but those small businesses are slowly starting to re-emerge. He says in the next couple of days, through the Small Business Development Center, they will be recapitalizing a lot of the small businesses through direct grants and loan facilities.
We encourage all of those small businesses that would have lost, that need help, to reach out to the Small Business Development Center for grants, for loan support, because we recognize that particularly for the small and micro businesses, it may be difficult for them to restock their inventory, to do the kind of infrastructure improvements that need to be done in order to reopen. And so we, as the government, through the Small Business Development Center, doing all that we can to provide some capital along with some credit to allow them to get back into business. For inventory replacement, we are offering incentives in terms of no duty and no value-added tax on that first restocking of inventory, again in an effort to try and help these businesses to get back into business as quickly as possible.
Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
The Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute was off to a great start this semester. Well, that's until Hurricane Dorian arrived. After the announcement in June of free education for those who qualified, there was an influx of students. But when the superstorm touched down on Grand Bahama, it interrupted classes and enrollment. The ground floor at the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute stripped to the bones and covered in tarp now, some 3 weeks since reopening following Hurricane Dorian. Associate Vice President Veronica Colley says that the school suffered significant damage and lost critical labs and equipment.
The whole ground floor, we lost everything. Machines, we have a welding lab, we had a welding lab, we had auto lab, all of the machines in all those areas, all of the offices downstairs. We are now operating out of some offices and classrooms upstairs, and we are also using St. George's in the evenings. We just opened on October the 7th, so we're using St. George's in the evenings thanks to Mr. Barr, the principal at St. George's. We're using mainly the labs that they have there. That would replace the labs that we have here at BTVI Freeport, but we incurred a great loss.
Now, many persons fled the island for a new life or just for a break. Colley says that this impacted numbers at the institution. She added that while some courses had to be canceled this semester, thankfully, they were able to keep the majority of classes.
Only where we saw there was under-enrollment or the courses were undersubscribed, we probably canceled a few. The courses that we might not have offered this semester would be like what we call professional development. Usually that is offered like around October, but we don't see that probably happening. But our regular courses, we tried to keep those courses once we had sufficient students in the classes. So as far as enrollment, like I said, we would drop by about 50% because really our enrollment was like over 500, which is a plus for BTVI Freeport. So we're looking at roughly about 250. But like I said, we tried to keep the courses going so that the students could actually be in the courses that they need to do to prepare for graduation.
Like many businesses on the island, crews are on site working around the clock to bring the institution back to working conditions. Colley says they are hoping to have the ground floor back in use in the shortest possible time.
We've been having meetings every morning with our board. We are working at getting everything done by the end of this semester. The focus was making sure we get the first floor to where it needs to be. We were able to just get temporary, power. So we're now on power, full power, not using the generator. And if you've noticed, we've been cleaning out front, so we want to make sure the front looks proper, like the way it should look for the students to come to the campus. So now we're going to phase 2, which will involve, we're actually doing some remodeling, so which will involve actually getting the building up to where it needs to be, and we are looking at that happening by the end of this semester.
The nation's leader, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, leading a delegation to the ABACOs today. The Prime Minister, along with Minister of Disaster Preparedness, the Honorable Aaron Lewis, Area MP, the Honorable Darren Henfield, Member of Parliament for South and Central ABACO, James Aubrey, and along with officials from Inland Revenue and the Customs Department, were on the ground in Green Turtle Key today. During that visit, the Prime Minister announced the declaration of Grand Bahama and ABACO as VAT-free zones until June 2020 to help stimulate both economies. The nation's leader also announced the establishment of the Bahamas National Recovery and Reconstruction Trust Fund, an independent, non-political body to help fund home and building repairs. Now, we spoke with the Area MP and Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Darren Henfield, shortly after that meeting.
It's like duty-free on rebuilding material, replacement of vehicles and commercial gear, concessions on fuel rate, on VAT, on taxes for those who were using the generators at the moment until BPL becomes regularized again. Those type of concessions. We were pleasantly surprised, but we anticipated that the resiliency that we've seen in ABACOnians
Minister Henfield says that some residents in ABACO did not know what was readily available to them. The plans were also announced for reconstruction, development, and concessions. He says both the seaports have been restored and the airport should be ready for international flights in the next 10 days.
It's going. It's not going to be an overnight fix. But people in ABACO have taken on the spirit of the pioneer. Very resilient people. We're very proud of the progress that we're making in ABACO.
He was a popular radio personality, and tonight he's paying tribute to a man whose policies and guidance helped him to establish a successful career in radio. As we continue to reflect on the life and times of broadcast giant Kelsey Johnson, this former radio announcer turned businessman is giving credit to the late pioneer for much of the development in the industry today. Che Philippe reports.
Many remembered Kelsey Johnson for his popular commentary on ZNS and his usual greeting, "Hello everyone." In the 1980s, Wes Boogie Down Ford began working at the Northern Service as a radio announcer. He had the opportunity to work directly with Kelsey Johnson.
My earliest memory as a child was that he had this voice that
I will never forget.
When you heard it,
those pictures I saw.
You had to stop and listen. You couldn't just continue what you were doing. And if you were able to do that, you were pretty good, because he had this voice that really captured your attention.
Wes Ford recalls that Kelsey Johnson was a boss that everyone respected because he held everyone accountable when it came to getting the job done.
If you didn't see him, you knew the voice. And so I remember hearing the voice in the building, and everybody was saying that was Kelsey Johnson. And then I realized why everybody was tiptoeing, because you literally had to toe a line or walk the straight and narrow when Mr. Johnson was in town, or whenever we would have information from him. I heard Byron mention how particularly was about our diction and our speech.
Kelsey Johnson served in many capacities and ultimately in the highest office at the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. Wes Ford says the former general manager and chairman of the board made work fun, but at the same time, he was critical about being efficient and professional.
He was a stickler for perfection. He was someone who created a culture at ZNS that would have been second to none, even though it was a little... It wasn't totally relaxed. Don't let no one fool you. Radio, we had to make that relax. Mr. Johnson wanted professionalism at all times.
Wes Ford says Kelsey Johnson played a critical role behind the scenes as it relates to the implementation of many new policies at ZNS. He says his leadership style improved work morale and made employees feel more relaxed.
The radio world, the Bahamas in general, we've lost someone who was important to radio, who was important to the media. We all could have learned a lot more had he stayed around a little longer.
I'm Jay Philippe, ZNS Network News.
You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Don't go away, there's more news right after this break.